Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are excited to have you here. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to come in. All right, we'll give everybody a couple more, and then we'll get started. Okay. I would like to welcome everyone to the pop-up webinar town hall focused on leading your veteran-owned business through the coronavirus crisis. We have with us today, joining us as co-hosts of this town hall, is PenFed Foundation, Veteran Entrepreneur Program, and the president of the PenFed Foundation, General Mick Nicholson. We have from Bunker Labs, Blake Hogan, who is the chief growth officer there. From Commit Foundation, the CEO and co-founder, Meree. We also have joining us today the co-founders of Honest Soul Yoga, a veteran-owned business that is based in the DC and Texas area, Suzie and Julia. Also, to serve as subject matter experts to help guide us through some of the things that are going on, as well as answer your questions. We have Jeremy Scholtes, who's a principal at Miles Stockbridge, and Jenn Loges, who's a co-founder and COO of One Degree Capital. And now I welcome Blake and Meree to say a few words.
All right, take it away, Meree.
Thanks, Blake. Grateful to be a part of today's event. At the Commit Foundation, we're big believers in collective impact and trying to partner with other organizations. Big fans of the whole notion around if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so it's an awesome time for all of us to get together and see how, in this trying time, we can work even more closely together to affect veterans, their families, their businesses, and in our case, their transitions. So thank you very much for having us here today. Over to you, Blake.
All right, thanks, Meree. So my name is Blake Hogan. I'm with Bunker Labs, and for those of you that aren't aware of Bunker, we help the military-connected community launch and grow businesses all across the country. So super thankful to Seda Goff and General Nicholson for hosting this with the PenFed Veteran Entrepreneur Investment Program and others. I mean, I think at a time like this, like the whole, world needs to come together. The world needs great leaders, and they're looking to entrepreneurs to step up. So it's exciting to be around a bunch of people who see the positive and see the opportunity to, not only support each other, but to make sure that our businesses both survive and thrive. So excited to be a part of this, and more important, to see people coming together to get the mission accomplished. That's it.
Thanks, Blake. Thanks, Meree. We really appreciate that, and definitely mirror all your words. And before I hand over the microphone to General Nicholson, want to just go through a couple housekeeping items. Everybody is muted and your video is turned off, although that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. So if you look at your screen on the right-hand side along the ribbon, you will see a Q&A button on the bottom. You can put in your questions in real time in there, and we will address those near the end. And I'll go through kind of our run of show in a moment. And then also, when we get to the Q&A session, if you would like to ask your question live, there's also a button that looks like a hand where you raise your hand. Press that button, and we'll try to get to you as soon as we can. If you have any other questions along the way, feel free to ask them, when it comes to the system, or if you're not hearing us, put that into the event chat or into the moderator chat, and I will see that directly. So what this will look like today is General John Mick Nicholson will tell you a little bit about himself, as well as what type of leadership opportunities do we all have here as kind of the entrepreneurial community here in the U.S. And then we will hear from Suzie and Julia from Monasoul Yoga and how they've been working with the program. And then again, we will then open the floor for question and answers, which Jeremy and Jen will help us address those, as well as the other folks around the table. And we look forward to hearing from everyone. So with that, I'd like to ask General Nicholson to go next.
Hey, thanks, Seda. And I wanted to add my welcome to everyone who's joining us, especially Meree and Blake. Thanks so much for joining us on the panel. And Julia and Suzie, great to see you guys again. And Jeremy, Rangers lead the way. Cool. Jen, thanks so much. Jen's worked with us on the Veteran Entrepreneur Program. So thanks, Seda, for organizing such a great group. And welcome to everyone who's joining us. We're really excited to have you. I mean, as you're going to hear me say here in a few minutes, and to echo what Blake and Meree said, learning from one another, working together, achieving some degree of unity of effort as you deal with uncertainty, you deal with change and risk is extremely important. So, as Seda mentioned, I retired after 36 years in the Army. Thanks to all of you who served in the various branches of our service or served in a civilian capacity. You have learned certain types of leadership in those various roles that you've been in, as did I. But today I wanted to talk about how we lead times of uncertainty and times of complexity and risk, and how you kind of work your way through that. So obviously, combat is not perfectly analogous to the entrepreneurial space, but there are some things that apply. And that's the experience I'll talk from over 6 years in Afghanistan, and how what did I learn about dealing with complexity and risk and uncertainty over there, and then how that might apply to what we're doing now. So first off, many of you as leaders who've been military leaders understand a lot of what we do in terms of decision making is intuitive. So if you're an infantry officer, and you come into contact with the enemy, you lay down a base of fire, you achieve fire superiority, and then you maneuver on the enemy. That's a decision. Those are decisions based on instinct. But that instinct is informed by training and experience. Now, of course, when you're in conditions of uncertainty or complexity, you may not have that experience or expertise or learning that you've done in that area. So that, in my experience, calls for a different kind of leadership. In a way, you have to learn the uncertainty and the complexity you're dealing with, so that then when you do act, when you do respond, it's the best possible response. The other dimension to learning, as Blake and Meree mentioned, is achieving unity of effort, learning from each other. And so how do we do that? Let me talk about that. As I think about achieving unity of effort, achieving teamwork, the fundamental premise is to get through this complexity, to get through this uncertainty, you're going to have to make decisions about things that you may not be experiencing. So you need to learn. So that means you're going to be reaching out to others. Today, this webinar, everybody joining in is an indication that everyone here gets that. We need to learn from each other and learn our way through this complex COVID-19 situation we find ourselves in. So reaching out to others and then identifying what shared interests you have, in my view, is the first step in achieving some degree of unity of effort with. Once you identify, hey, we share this common interest, and then lead to a discussion of, well, how do we work together to achieve our common? Now, you also might identify friction points. Well, we know we're going to have friction in this or that area. How are you going to work through the friction? So having this dialogue with someone how we're going to achieve our shared interests, how we're going to mitigate any friction that occurs, leads to essentially these are the fundamentals of building a relationship. So these relationships, then, when you practice the things that you've discussed, lead to a degree of trust. And once you establish that trust, now you can really get results. So as you look to build unity of effort, and this is with people who can help you and your enterprise to move forward, I'd offer that methodology as you work through that. And this is extremely important. As I recall when Scott Miller and I handed off in Afghanistan in September of 2018. At that point, he and I discussed things like a peace negotiation and a troop drawdown, but we never discussed things like the effect of COVID-19 on a military, or the effect of two rival candidates in the presidential election, each swearing themselves in as president. So he's dealing with a degree of complexity and risk and uncertainty right now that neither one of us could have anticipated at the time. And again, learning his way through that. And every one of you has experienced the kinds of things that I'm talking about. So first, I'd advocate, as you deal with this, taking a step back, looking at the landscape. What do I need to learn about this new set of conditions who are the people with whom I may not have a relationship, clearly don't have any control over them, but I need them for the success of my enterprise. And then you reach out, you establish that relationship, work through the methodology I talked about, enabling a degree of trust, and now you can move forward and work together in concert on the interests that you share. Now, all of this that I've talked about, I think, requires certain qualities. Again, the majority of this audience are veterans or those who've worked in the military. Qualities I'm going to talk about are not necessarily on the list of military virtues. And we see very important qualities like physical courage, moral courage, integrity, duty. Clearly, these are all very important. When it comes to achieving unity of effort, there's some additional qualities I'd offer to you. Number one is humility. So humility, especially intellectual humility, enables someone to learn. So when you recognize I don't have all the answers, I'm dealing with a new set of conditions. It's complex, it's uncertain. I need to learn. So that's an intellectual humility in terms of your approach to the problem set, that if you learn, you will make better decisions. The second I'd say is respect for others. So identifying those that do have a specialized expertise or information that's valuable to you. And whether you have a relationship or not, showing them the respect to approach them and listen to what they have to say. Empathy is important. Empathy also enables you to establish a relationship and learn from others. What do I mean by empathy? First, that's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Maybe this person's a competitor, but maybe it's someone you can learn from. So empathy implies you're going to see the world through their lens, which then, in a way, is disarming. Again, you approach this with humility, respect, and empathy. Now you're going to be able to learn from them in terms of their approach to the problem set, and hopefully that will help you to come up with a better. Patience is extremely important. I know, in the military and sometimes in the business world, we respect the bold, aggressive move, but in many cases, especially when you're dealing with complexity and uncertainty, patience is necessary. To understand the conditions until you have enough information to make that move. All of this takes time. So how do you put that time on your clock? I'd say what I found as a military leader was the key phrase I used to triage my time was doing only those things that only I could do, the leader of the enterprise. So there may be things within your enterprise that others can do. And certainly you could do it for them, or you could be standing there looking over their shoulder. And in a way, that's focusing down and in. A certain amount of that is important to ensure your enterprise is running smoothly. But on the other hand, there's some things that only you can do for you. Only you as the CEO, the president, the founder, can be the one who does outreach to certain funders or others. Only you can establish those key relationships with the other people who are going to help you be successful. So I'd recommend to you is putting how you use your time through that filter. What are the things that only I can do for the organization? And then what are the things that I can delegate to somebody else? This, in my experience, this helped to put time on my clock so that I could then focus on the things that only I could do. You know, as commander in Afghanistan, it's only I could go sit down with President Ghani and work through a thorny issue. I could talk up to the CENTCOM commander or to the Pentagon or the White House about my recommendations on the way forward. But in order to be able to do that, I had to have the time. And I put that time on my clock by having some outstanding teammates who could do the down and in to enable me to do the up and out and do the things that only I could do for the organization. So I think all of those things are critical to being able to work your way through uncertainty, through complexity, through risk. The final thing I'd say to all of you as leaders, and this is especially true in times of crisis or risk or uncertainty, is take care of yourselves. As the leader of an organization, and I used to say this as an infantry officer, as a junior officer, you're getting paid as much for your back as well as your brain. But as you get more senior and as you get more responsibility, you're being paid more for your brain than your back. And my point is this: if you are not taking care of yourself in terms of sleep, nutrition, and then and the emotional and physical balance that you need, then you are not going to be operating at your peak performance. So what are the things you need to do in terms of sleep, nutrition, exercise, emotional balance to keep yourself operating at peak capacity through this period of crisis? And so in my case, 2.5 years as a commander in Afghanistan was a long slog. But I knew from self-awareness, I needed a certain amount of sleep every night or I wasn't going to be thinking straight the next day. And for me, again, trying to be self-aware, I had to average 7 hours of sleep a night in order to be able to do that. Now, some nights I didn't get that. It was 3 hours of sleep or 4 hours of work. You had to work through the night. But whenever I could reset, I found for my mental performance, 7 hours was necessary. If you don't get enough sleep, it's the same effect on your brain function as if you were drunk. So it's important to remember those things that are necessary to take care of yourself. And of course, I add in, eating right and exercising. And then, of course, for me, it was every day talking to my wife, occasionally, not as often, talking to my kids and my parents. But what do you need to be emotionally grounded? So in my case, I call that 2-3-7. 2 hours a day for PT and talking to my family, 3 meals a day, 7 hours of sleep. That added up to 10 hours a day. That left me 14 hours a day to do my job, to do the things that only I could do for the organization. And I found if I couldn't get it done in 14 hours, then I wasn't doing the right things. So this was, everyone's going to have a different formula. That's the one that worked for me in that situation. But I just offered as have an approach to this. If you allow events to determine how you allocate your time, then I'd suggest you may end up not looking after yourself. And if you don't make it a priority, nobody else is going to do it. So let me conclude there. Just some thoughts on how to work your way through complexity and risk and uncertainty. All of you have done this before with your time in the military. I'd say in that sense, you've got a leg up on those that haven't had to deal with crises or combat or the difficult and austere conditions that come with being in the military. But I applaud all of you for being here today because it demonstrates right off the bat everyone here is looking to learn. I'm looking to learn from you. And so with that, Seda, let me turn it back over to you for the next piece.
Thank you, sir. So from here, we'd love to now hear from the Honest Soul Yoga team. So again, I'm introducing Suzie Mills and Julie Lopez to give us a little bit about what they've been, how they've been responding to this, when they started responding to this, and what are some of the considerations that they've been going through during this time. And then from here, hopefully this spurs some questions that you may have and allows you to kind of think about what similarities that you as a entrepreneur and business owner are going through that'll lead right into our Q&A. So I welcome Suzie and Julia to talk a little bit about what they've been doing.
Thanks, Seda. My name is Julie Lopez, and my business partner is Suzie Mills. Together we own Honest Soul Yoga. We're really excited to be here, and just connecting with other people is really good emotional support too. So the General was talking a lot about how to stay above water in all of this, and so these types of things are super helpful. So thank you for putting it together. Kind of jumping right into what you had asked originally, how did we respond? I can kind of give a little brief response to that, and then I'll definitely let Suzie chime in and give her thoughts on that as well. But we responded early. We have locations in Virginia, and we also have locations in Texas, and so what that positioned us to see is very different responses depending on the state, the area of the country we were in. But what we did know is that we didn't have all of the facts. And so something that the General brought up as well is when you're in times of uncertainty, your instincts might be off, or you might not be able to rely on your instincts. And so something that a mutual mentor of Suzie and I once told me is when you can't make a decision, it means you don't have all the facts. And so we knew that we didn't have all the facts. And so we were able, luckily, to have someone on our team who is sort of on the inside of what does this mean from a health perspective? And we got on the phone with her and we asked some really tough questions very early in the process. We asked her, in her professional opinion, how big was this going to get? What did we need to do? And I think most importantly, were we equipped to keep our spaces as safe as we were going to promise our clients that we could? She was very clear that we could not. My sister is also a medical professional, and my sister said the same thing. For someone to be able to have a space that's designed for social gathering, during something like this, we would also need to be trained in how to disinfect that space adequately and be able to essentially go above and beyond something that we were equipped to do. And I think for me, once I heard that information, I knew that we had to start really walking our walk as an organization. We talk a lot about supporting not only physical well-being, but also mental and emotional well-being. And it did not feel in alignment for us to continue to operate in an open, big way if we knew that we weren't able to keep the space as safe from this virus as we wanted to. And so we started shutting down our spaces a lot earlier than other people in our industry. And I don't say that that's because they made a wrong decision. They just might not have had all the facts. I think we had the facts. And we started reducing class sizes very early in March. We started increasing protocols very early in March. And then quickly after that, it escalated into closing our doors. We did close our doors before we had a government mandate to do so. And ultimately, I think that that's the thing that rested most sure in our hearts, to know that we were taking care of our clients and our teachers in the best way possible. Suzie, did you have thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, for us, it was just thinking of our employees too, and making sure that we were taking care of them. And a lot of our employees have family. Well, I mean, everybody has families, but they had young kids at home, and we just wanted to make sure that we were giving the space for our employees as well to manage through this, because anytime somebody felt any sort of symptoms, whether it was related to coronavirus or not, everyone started to get very concerned. And so we were even struggling to fill our classes with our teachers. So I know for us, making that decision ahead of other businesses was really scary, and we worried, especially with two different states responding differently. But we know as soon as we made the call, it immediately felt like the right decision, and our team supported us. And honestly, that's the biggest thing that we've been concerned about through all of this is our team. And we have over 60 employees between Texas and Virginia, and we wanted to make sure that they felt like we knew what we were doing, and we were supporting them, and we were leading the charge with this. And so through this has been a lot of just good communication with our team, and every step of the way letting them know we may not have the answers at all the time, but this is with the information we have now, and this is this decision we're making at this time based on the facts that we have. And so being able to have the support of our team through this has been really, really helpful, and in making Julie and I know that we made the right decision.
One of the things we were able to do, because we chose to start addressing this really early in the process, or what felt like early in the process, is we were able to start pivoting our services online quickly. We started live streaming classes through Facebook and through Zoom, and we were able to kind of overnight launch a website where we could then catalog all of our services so that people could reference them later. And I think for us, that has been the thing that has set it apart, is because just like any other yoga class, you might not be able to get to it at the time that you want to. But now we have this beautiful ability for someone to take that yoga class later or take it multiple times. And that's been beautiful. I don't want to underestimate or overestimate. I want to be very clear in saying that that doesn't make up for the fact that we had to shut our brick and mortar, and we're definitely going through a grieving process. But it is keeping us positive and encouraged, and it's allowing us to stay involved with our clients so they don't forget about us and they know we haven't forgotten about them. And some of our teachers have kind of been in the same boat where they're like, just give me something to do. Being able to be a part of a team, feel like you're part of the solution is hugely supportive. Something else that in this opening that the general offered us about delegating, one of the biggest things for a small business owner is we feel like we can't delegate anything, right? We have all the hats. And so Suzie and I quickly had to figure out, well, what do we not know and who can help us? So our legal team, our accounting, honestly, our lawyers and our accountants are like our friends. I always joke that like it feels too formal to call them those things because they're just people we love and lean on. And so we immediately were sending emails to them and calling them, and they were calling back and giving us so much of their time. And we learned a lot from their expertise. And then another thing is Suzie and I have had to remind ourselves that we need to delegate back to our team, that our team has to take care of themselves as well. Every single employee that we have is ultimately responsible for their own well-being as well. And so continually encouraging our team, please do for you what you need to do for your family, for your life. And don't feel like you're going to get any shame. You're not going to get any pushback from us if you're choosing to make decisions based on what's best for you. This was like some team members that are immunocompromised, and they stopped teaching classes in the space really early on because they were scared and they felt that that was the best decision they needed to make for themselves. I think that they felt empowered to make those choices early on because they knew there was not going to be any damage to the relationship they had with us if they needed to make a choice for themselves. So we fully supported that. And I think some of that came from having to remind ourselves that as the owners of this business, we can't play God, right? We can't decide what is best for every single person on our team. They have to make those decisions. And that actually takes a tremendous amount of weight off our shoulders to know that, you know what, we employ responsible adults who have our back and we have theirs, but ultimately they are going to make choices for themselves that are going to be best for them too. Something
Great,
that I think,
sorry.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Seda. I don't know if there's any other questions on that.
I think we will be able to circle back. I think you'll get a lot of questions as well on, one that's come through already that I'm going to use as our segue into the Q&A is how has kind of the coronavirus crisis helped you with these new opportunities? And were these new opportunities just previously put to the side, and now you're kind of bringing them back?
Yeah. We have had digital going online in the works for quite some time, but we just have, because of brick and mortar and how busy we were with opening our Texas region, that we hadn't had the time to do it. And so nothing like time. So we were able to completely pivot and launch our online platform. We've launched an app pretty much in the span of a week. So we've been able to quickly do what we've been wanting to do, but we just didn't have the capacity at the time. So that has been a huge change and something that will allow us to carry forward when we do resume operations in the way we were before. But now we have the added benefit that we've been able to get this off the ground and to start to perfect it.
That's
I think
great.
one of the
That's
things-
great. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
One of the-
Julia.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say on that point of getting something launched in a week, you have to lower your standards a little bit. And I think right now everybody's feeling that. Before, things that were obstacles in our way were things like, how slick is it going to look? Do we have the right resolution of camera? Do we have the equipment? Is there a professional editor? Well, I can let you know that Suzie and I are now professional editors, and we look forward to the day when we don't have to be.
That's my fancy camera.
Yes, we have really fancy equipment. And I think that this has just reminded us of all of the scrappiness that we knew we had when we started our business, and sort of took us back to our roots of how do we get things going quickly, and how do we not let ourselves get in our own way in the process.
That's great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. And so I'd love to take this moment to segue into our Q&A. This is an opportunity for our attendees to ask questions from not only General Nicholson, our co-hosts, our entrepreneurs kind of in residence right now on this call, but if you have any accounting, tax, emergency funds questions, as well as any legal concerns, we have Jenn and Jeremy here to answer those questions. So please use the chat function or the Q&A tab, whichever one you feel comfortable with, and we will answer your questions. While people are typing furiously away, I'd like to kind of start with a question. This is open to Jeremy or Jenn. We are seeing some information coming, and I'll turn my video on. We are seeing some information coming from Capitol Hill about a potential stimulus bill and some kind of rules and regulations around that stimulus bill, specifically for business owners and how they could take advantage of that. Could you give us a little bit of insight as to what is up for consideration? What should small businesses know about it? And then Jenn, also, not to double layer questions, so I apologize for that. And then Jenn, if you could also touch on something that you talked with us about last week, which was the SBA disaster loan. Over.
Yeah, so I'll take a piece of that, and then maybe Jeremy can jump in on some of it as well. But so a couple of things. And first, since I'm just coming on, wow, this has been awesome so far, and it's amazing, Julia and Suzie, to hear the adaptiveness that you all have done so quickly, and it's amazing and very inspiring. So this is awesome, and thanks for sharing that. As far as the biggest thing that we're recommending for people now is assessing, it's kind of as you guys were doing, assessing what do you have, what are your options. To a couple of those things, there's a lot in the proposed legislation, Seda, to your question, that is due to come down the pike if they can get it approved today. As soon as that is, we'll have some more clarity. There's a lot of discussion about what they might be doing, and I'd rather wait and see what they actually do come down with. There's a lot of rumors going around about it, about different components of it, and I don't want to feed into that. What I can tell you is the things that are already on the table, which is for business owners especially, is the number one, the delay in your taxes. So your taxes aren't due till July 15th. So the cash that you're holding on to be able to pay your taxes, you're able to use for working capital now. The second piece of it, and we can get more into that in a little bit, is the SBA disaster loan program, which is there and which is available. It's up to a $2 million loan for businesses. But I want to give Jeremy a chance to respond to your question too before jumping into the second part of your question, Seda.
All right. I think I'm on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks PenFed and Seda and General Nicholson for including me in this. It's a privilege to be able to reach out and help with whoever needs some assistance. On the stimulus package, of course, we're all waiting to see exactly what's going to be there. But one thing that might be of interest to most folks is what we're expecting in part to be there's a $350 billion in loans for small businesses, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But at least at this point, it's looking like those small businesses would be companies that are less than or fewer than 500 employees, and that the loans may be in amounts up to or less than 2.5 months of payroll, or 10 million, whichever is less for your company. And there's a possibility that the loans would convert to grants to the extent they were used to maintain employees, so used for payroll and that type of thing. So everyone's going to have to think critically about the purpose for which they would get a loan and how they're going to use it. And at least at this point, it looks like local and national lenders will be participating in that. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things that could be included. And as we know from the rounds of changes with EPSL and the expanded Family Medical Leave Act, there are things that are in it today that might not be there at the end, or there are things that are in it that when quickly drafted regulations come out, it won't be implemented exactly the same way we thought it would be under the statute. So that's, we have a team at our firm that'll be just working through all those, and then, like many other firms out there, we'll be providing counsel on, like, we have a coronavirus task force webpage, so you can go in there, and I just urge you, whether it's Miles or whether it's whatever law firm or accounting firm that you might work with, whoever your trusted advisor is, that you go to the people who know the facts and not necessarily pull it from national media outlets. That might be a good place to start for a splash, but then go to your state and your federal government posts on actual official websites like Department of Labor and so forth, and then go to your trusted advisors.
That's great. And Jen, did you have some follow-up on the SBA disaster loan?
Yeah, so just real quick, I know we don't want to get, I mean, you could have a whole thing on that, and I know we don't want to do that right now, but the basic things to know about the SBA disaster loan program is that it is long-term loans. It's 3.75% for up to 30 years. Right now, the SBA is saying that they're going to underwrite all of them at 30 years. And it's designed to cover your operating costs, and they're calculating that currently. The calculation that they're using is 6 months of operating costs. So it's really important for you to know what your operating costs are, to know what you can expect from a loan like this. The other couple key things to know about the terms: once you are approved for the loan and you sign, you have your closing, you'll get the funds that day. Your first payment will not take place for another year. Your interest will start accruing at the day of closing, but you won't have your first payment until a year later. These loans, even though they're 30-year loans, you can pay them off at any time. There's no prepayment penalty. If you get a windfall and you pay it off 6 months later, that's fine. There's no additional charge for doing that. The best thing to do, and some key things to do right now, number one is assess your needs. Look at what your cash flow needs are for the next 90 days. These SBA loans the website was down for 6 hours last night for maintenance. It's been up and down today. This website was designed to have people go on it that were in a regional disaster. So think hurricane, tornado, something like that. Was never designed for every business in the country to be trying to access it at the same time, which is what we have right now. So assess what your cash flow needs are for the next 90 days. Apply for the SBA loan program, for the disaster loan program, but you need to work on other cash flow considerations as well. If you have lines of credits, draw on those lines of credits. Get the cash in hand to keep yourself running. Look at what your expenses are, your creditors, and contact them about deferrals. A lot of newer businesses have SBA loans. SBA has built into the program, they do have some deferral options for disasters. So we really encourage you, whether it's an SBA loan or any other type of loan, contact your creditors and start the conversation about how to get your payments deferred for a time being, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you can get. The key to all of this is communication. The one thing that we all need to be doing is, as Jeremy said, there's a lot of information going on out there. Communicate with your key advisors, who those are, to kind of filter you through the noise, but also communicate with your team members, communicate with your creditors, with your lenders, all of that, and keep those communication channels open. Really the best thing to do, and again, is assess your cash flow need, apply. You can go online directly to the SBA's website. You can do it directly. You don't have to go through a bank. It's sba.gov/disaster, and that's where you can start. There is help available. If you are needing help to do it, there's some specific forms in that you need to fill out. And again, we can talk about that at a different time, but there is help available if you need it. So don't ever feel like you have to go it alone. But know that the best time to do that is to get into and apply for those disaster relief loans now, so that you can get into the queue, because it will take a while for them to process all of these.
Are there any, Jen, or Jeremy, are there any pitfalls that could happen in the long run with obtaining the SBA loan that we may not be aware of?
You mean a law of unintended consequences? When does that ever happen with government programs? I think the best part about the disaster loan program is that if you apply, if you're approved, there's no cost to apply. So you can apply. If you get approved and something changes or a new program comes down the road and you don't want to use the disaster loan program, you can just say no and not close on the loan, and there's no penalty, there's no cost to you at all. So I think it's good to have that, to start there and have that as an option, so that at least as things are coming down the pike here in the near future with these other programs and that you at least have an opportunity to weigh your options. And that's what's most important. You don't want to be stuck in a corner with, or maybe just stuck with one option. Have some options. And the best way to start is to start with applying for that loan. But yeah, there's no penalty if you don't do it.
Okay, thanks. One other question that came through, this might be for Jeremy. Are there any aspects of the bill that's coming through that may affect commercial landlord and tenant relationships?
I don't know necessarily that there's an aspect of the bill that is specifically focused on that, but I would offer you this, well, a couple of different ideas. One is contracts control, right? So you're going to be in a position, no matter what your cash flow is today, what your line of credit is, or what loans you're able to get, you are likely in a position where you have obligations, performance obligations going up to someone. So the question that was just asked, you may be a tenant like Julia and Suzie running brick and mortar facilities. You might be a tenant. So bust out that contract, comb through, and start looking for provisions like force majeure clauses and impossibility clauses, where there may be some definition there about what's considered impossibility. Also delay provisions, and looking to see what may excuse you from performance. So in your case as a tenant, it may be making your payments, right? On the other hand, you might be a landlord who's out there, and what can you do? Can you terminate the lease, move someone out? Now, there's a lot of legislation that's out there right now. I'm in Maryland, for example, and in Maryland, you cannot at this time move someone out of their home or property, right? So it varies from state to state. Federal level will have guidance and potentially new legal provisions that come out in the statute and implementing regulations. But I would I'd look to your contracts, look at your timelines, schedules, and deadlines, whether that's in the landlord-tenant context or it's for anything else. Maybe if you're a new, you're an entrepreneur out there and you have vendor orders in, or you yourself are that vendor. You make coffee and you have orders that need to be filled, and you can't fill orders because you don't have people, because folks are sick, or because you're locked down, or whatever the situation may be. You want to look at the provisions for excused delay. You want to look specifically for notice provisions, because you may be in a position where you could be able to terminate the contract for convenience or default, but you can only, especially on the convenience side or on a delay side, you're only going to get relief from upstream if you give appropriate notice, right? And I would like to think that we are all in this together, and despite the challenges, or maybe, because of the challenges, it's going to pull us all closer together. But at the end of the day, there are going to be a lot of companies who have to look out for number one, and they're going to look to enforce contractual provisions. So make sure you're looking through there and giving appropriate notice. And then I think Jen, actually a couple of you were saying this, communicate early and often. And it's always great to start on the phone, pick up the phone and have that discussion, because so much can happen through the sound of your voice and all of that, as opposed to just an email. But when you're done with that communication, memorialize it in writing. Send an email back or send a letter back that says, hey, Jen, thanks so much for the discussion today. It's my understanding that you've agreed to X, Y, and Z. If there's anything in here that is inconsistent or I misunderstood, please correct it now. And then you'll have that to rely on, because so many amendments or modifications to your contracts are going to require a writing, at least, if not a signed writing. So just a lot to think about, but you've got time to read contracts now, so.
And can you, we have one question about, can you ask creditors, in terms of the communication, can you ask creditors to drop the interest rates on their specific loan, on your specific loans?
Well, you can always ask. And of course, if you don't ask, you're likely to get it. But I would imagine, right, it's really going to depend. If you're with large national lenders, it's probably unlikely unless they do something enterprise-wide. If you're with a small local bank, for example, that may be a more likely outcome. But behind a lot of the local banks, there are also large national banks and facilities that actually own them and are pushing down the rules. And then if you're in private contracts, that's a different situation. So.
Yeah, I think it's to Jeremy's point. First of all, ask. It will probably serve you better to have a conversation about deferring payments than to renegotiate interest rates, because I think really what you're looking for at this point is you're looking to control your cash flow. You're looking to control your burn. So, and doing that, your bigger bang impact is going to come from asking for payment deferrals or making interest-only payments than it is to try to renegotiate an interest rate.
Okay, great. So I'm going to shift a little bit. So this question, I think actually goes out to Blake and Anne-Marie, might be the great ones to answer this, is for those folks that are, happen to be going through a transition moment in their lives at this time, and just kind of it hit during this crisis, whether it be as they're transitioning out of the military or transitioning into other employment, or in one of our listeners' case, Brian, transitioning from full-time employment to becoming an entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur, right? 4 weeks ago. What advice do you have for them? What resources may be available for them? Obviously outside of this town hall. Blake, maybe if you want to touch on the entrepreneur one first.
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing I would say is like, calm down and take a deep breath and look around. Making a reactive decision, feels right. Like, I'm a Marine, so we always go towards like violence of action, and sometimes that's not the best thing to do. Sometimes the best thing to do is take a look around. We did. So first thing I'll say is on for super tactical things, you can go to bunkerlabs.org/all-in, where it's 10-minute daily interviews from entrepreneurs that are currently in the fight, talking about what they're going to keep doing, stop doing, and start doing. And then weekly interviews from folks that have been through crises in the past. We had an Air Force colonel on who's actually activated. He's a tech company guy, but activated on as a judge advocate with helping to set up hospital ships and field hospitals and things like that. And so coming at it from his finance background, he's like, look, this is not a financial crisis. This is a psychological crisis and a medical crisis. So there's not something that's inherently wrong with the financial system. It will rebound. It's a matter of, will it rebound in a quarter or 6 months or a year or 18 months? So I think like, one is like, take a deep breath, look around, evaluate what you want to do and what your cash position looks like and what you need. Figure out what you can do to take care of your family first. Like, I think that's the most important thing. And then it's like, determine whether or not you want to continue to pursue. I'll also say that it doesn't mean you should be on the defense. There are lots of companies that are making lots of money right now. And whether it's online grocery delivery or, I don't know, you name it. So don't be afraid about going on the offense and providing resources and things that people need right now. Entertainment companies are booming right now. We had, a guy that's developing like in-app purchases for gaming. So like, I would say it depends on what you're doing. First, like, take a moment, breathe, relax, be thoughtful about your decision, understand that you don't need to be on defense, and understand that like history tells us we will rebound. It's a matter of when. And you need to be able to ask that tough question of yourself of like, do I have the ability to withstand that? And then make the decision based off of that. And in the meantime, know that there are things like this that are happening all over. So they're out there. And anything we can do to help, we certainly want to. Anne-Marie?
And Anne-Marie, if you want to touch on kind of the transitioning.
Sure thing.
People that are in transition.
So we're really blessed to commit to specialize in transition, and our mission is to create serendipity for veterans and ensuring they have purpose. And luckily, we spent a significant amount of time and resources about 18 months ago building a beautiful platform that any of you can participate in. If you would simply go online, it's a 12-module program, to go back to what General Nicholson said, as well as Blake, and really taking a deep breath, positive psychology, focusing on taking care of yourself. We have a process that will take you through that. And it's all grounded around your values and your strengths. And really, maybe you could look at this as a time to ensure that all of that is aligned when it comes to how you're living your life, both personally and professionally. In addition to that 12-module program that for most persons is complemented by 5 hours of executive coaching, which I know we could all benefit from, we also have launched a new digital community that connects people through our digital library, our mentor network, and our alumni network. So again, as Blake mentioned, there's a lot of great things going on in the midst of this. And if you could, have a little bit of perspective, take that deep breath, take care of yourself, and hopefully in commit, find a partner to help guide you in a very positive psychology way to ensure that you're pursuing what you want to be pursuing right now and moving forward.
Hey,
Thanks,
Seda.
Anne-Marie. Yes, sir.
Seda, I tell, this isn't really legal as much as, I don't know, I feel sometimes like half my job is more of being a psychologist, which I wasn't trained for in law school, so that's been interesting. But it's important, right? A lot of times people just need to be heard. And in the course of explaining themselves and talking out loud, they work through a lot of their own problems. So with a lot of my clients, I have 3 points I'm making all the time, and especially with my entrepreneur clients. Lean in, lean on, and reach back. Lean in on opportunities that are there. And I think right now, a great example of this, I sit on an advisory board for an incubator and accelerator, and we had a meeting similar to this on Monday morning, and I talked about looking for that opportunity to pivot. Julie and Suzie just, gave us a great example of it. Look for the silver lining here. Look for new hiring opportunities, right? There are going to be lots of people on the market. Look for the new cash flow and loan opportunities. Look for the new investment opportunities as angel folks and other rounds look for ways to really bring the economy back booming in weeks or months from now. On the lean on, look for those new partnerships, right? Everyone doesn't have to be, Blake was kind of scratching on this, I think. Everyone doesn't have to be a competitor, especially today. Maybe there's someone across the street or in the office next to you or through the internet who is the perfect partner who you never would have looked to when you were too busy running through trying to get your own company going, who's going to, in partnership, you guys could take each other to new heights. Sifting through ideas, right, and leveraging professionals. And find the professionals, the accountants, the HR, and the legal people who are there to support you today, right where you are today, with the cash flow you have today. And those are the ones who you can really embrace and carry forward with you down the road, because you knew they would cut you a break today, cut their rates, or, do whatever it is they need to do to help you get through. And then reach back, because you always, we all got to where we are today because we stood on the shoulders of a bunch of other people who helped us get here. So don't forget to go back to those, like General Nicholson's, who you can go to and be like, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, hey, grandma, hey, grandpa, whoever it is, help me out. I'm not really sure where to go here. So let your guard down and let other people shore you up where necessary.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's amazing. And I'll turn it over to General Nicholson to help wrap us up and bring us home.
Thanks, Dave. Well, what a great conversation. I want to say thanks to everyone who's contributed here, and to Jenn and Jeremy especially. Great insights. And this gets to the theme that all of you mentioned. And Jeremy, you put it very eloquently there at the end. This is a time to, approach those relationships with some degree of humility and say, hey, how can I help you? How can you help me? How can we work together to get through this crisis? And I think that you come out on the other side with some relationships that'll really be beneficial to you down the line. And so I learned a lot listening to all of you today. And Meree, thanks so much for joining us. You really are the experts in transition and that online course you offer, and the way you're focused on specifically important groups like women veteran entrepreneurs and others. We didn't get into those specific needs of some of these groups, but we got Suzie and Julia right here who are great examples of that. And I want to applaud you too on the way you've seen opportunity and the chaos. I think that was a line from Game of Thrones there. I heard about at one point, not that I ever had the time to watch it. But there is opportunity. Jeremy touched on it, Blake touched on it, and how to adapt to the uncertainty, adapt to the complexity, and then work your way through it and come out of this situation in an even better place. I'm grateful to hear about these government programs. And Jenn, thanks a lot. That was really insightful. And Jeremy, learning more about what's on the horizon. I did want to put in a mention in the foundation. The Veterans Entrepreneur Program is one of our key pillars We are also doing, and for all of you who are in touch with the veteran community, we are doing emergency financial assistance to veterans and service members who are affected by COVID-19. Just to give you a sense of how this is affecting our community, we opened this program on last Tuesday, and by Saturday had over 6,000 applications for help. And so there are people hurting out there. And these are typically junior enlisted, Guard, Reserve, some active duty, issues like food insecurity, which frankly is surprising to me that we deal with this, but it's the reality of it. So we have some military families out there that are having a tough time working through this. And it's interesting when you read their applications because it reflects the ethos that we're all familiar with. And one of them said, "Hey, I volunteered to serve. I'm ready to serve, and I'm sorry I have to ask for help, but I really need help right." And so this reflects that ethos: strong, silent type, ready to step up, don't want to ask people for help, but sometimes they need it. And so I appreciate everything you all are doing, employ other veterans to help them through the crisis, to come together and move us forward. So thanks again, Seda. Shout out to you. Thanks a lot for organizing this. This is tremendous. I know Seda's doing this on a regular basis. And these four are really great. And again, thanks to all of you for joining. So Seda, back to you.
With that, I'd like to also say thank you to Commit Foundation, Bunker Labs, Jeremy from Miles Stockbridge, Julia and Suzie from Honest Soul Yoga, and Jenn Loges from One Degree Capital. If you have learned about this through LinkedIn, check out the LinkedIn post and you'll see links straight to these folks so that you can follow them on social media as well, because they're always posting more and more information. And we will be posting this recording up. So if any of your friends who didn't get a chance to see this want to, they'll be able to. So we really appreciate everything. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Seda.
everyone. Thank you.